You're listening to a 4x4 Radio Network podcast.
Just gotta keep hammering it hard, don't you?
Well, it was either that or step on it and rip the microphone off.
You're
I
like
figured it was kind of expensive to do that.
A cat with a bullet upgrade. Yay! No. Hi, folks. Welcome to another edition of On the Trail with Kevin and Scott. I am Scott, your slapstick parts guy, on a continuing mission to try and throw not only curveballs to poor Kevin, but also kind of realize that some days you get really lucky and some days you don't. And with that, Kevin, how you doing today?
Hey, I am fine, Scott. I'm Kevin, as he just mentioned. I'm the engineer, you know, the guy that, as I usually say repetitively for 8 years now, I'm the guy that reads the instructions, tries to use the right tools, and generally follows those instructions, unless I'm off on a little creative bent, in which case I know I am the responsible person.
Yeah, sometimes I just use a stapler, too.
Yeah, well, that comes in handy. It's just difficult when you use it on your fingers.
Well, you know, that's what super glue's for. And as we always share what worked for us as well as what didn't, it's always up to you to do your research and do what you want to your Jeep.
Yep. You don't have to follow the trends to be a happy Jeeper, that's for sure.
I didn't follow the trends this time. So,
okay.
Welcome to show 192, kids.
192.
I know.
Yeehaw.
We really hope you guys enjoyed the steering show and, of course, the show with Paul Bruno.
Yeah.
But something actually happened between the recording of those shows that was kind of funny.
Yeah, it was. We mentioned the input 3 shows ago, whatever it was.
Yes.
You know, Scott's LJ, quantum entanglement, I guess you still call it.
Yeah. Among other things.
Yeah, you were using other kind words there at that point that we don't use on the mix.
50 miles an hour on the way home.
Yeah, and we mentioned that we did go over at one of our friends' shop,
Jesse
Remco. Jesse with Remco Transmissions in Plant City, Florida. If you need transmission work, he's a good guy. They've got a great system, and they do know Jeeps as well as just about everything else that rolls on 4 wheels, 3 wheels, 6 wheels. I don't know, whatever. If it's got a transmission, he probably can help.
Just give him a call.
Anyhow, and he was nice enough to open a bay up for us on a Saturday when they were closed and helped us, pull your 6-speed and find grumbly, the throwout bearing. And yeah, it was grumbly. Not quite sure why, because we went through a lot to get a good factory metal-based bearing. And I have a feeling that whoever assembled it was having a bad day, and somehow the grease gun was empty or whatever. It kind of dry.
Or kind of all the oil being washed into it, washed the grease out.
I doubt that, but possible. Anywho. There was a side effect to said repair, as happy as Scott was when we recorded that show.
So after we left that show a couple shows ago.
You ever heard of Magic Fingers beds from the old hotels?
What kind of show are we recording now? Okay,
you put the quarter in the bed and...
I was going to go somewhere else with that for a second.
Obviously, you're not old enough to remember that.
No, I know. I've seen National Lampoon's Vacation. So, what are you doing, Clark? So, as we were, after I left Kevin's house that day, basically we got the transfer case, the clutch bearing in, and then we found out the bolts to the transfer case drop I wanted to reinstall were incorrect. So
they've been shipped with American half-inch rather than metric fine thread 13 mil. And while the sockets are the same, the threads are not.
Yes. And so we went ahead and decided to install the transfer case drop.
We just did it at my house.
We recorded the show real quickly, and then I got in the Jeep to leave home, and things felt a little weird, but it wasn't until I hit 50 miles an hour on a certain state road that things got really angry.
Yep.
It started to shake. It started to shimmy, and I thought I heard growling from the rear end. I'm like, because sometimes things just fall apart.
Yeah.
When you fix one thing and something else decides to leave the chat.
Well, we talk about, again, just like last time, there's a system to most components.
Yes. Well, that's why you don't want to replace too many things at one time.
Right.
And I didn't follow my own golden rule. So I stopped off at, because it was on the way, and I stopped off at my stepdad's place, and I'm up there, and I'm looking through all the stuff. And I'm like, man, I'm getting upset. And then I look at my rear pinion angle.
We had done a 1-inch transfer case drop because his front drive shaft originally was doing the wet dog shake because the pinion angle he couldn't. He either had a choice of caster. Yeah, look at that, just in the last show.
Yeah, exactly.
Caster angle being good and a bad pinion angle, or a good pinion angle and bad caster and wandering all over the road. So you had chosen the caster angle to have it drive safely
and remove the front drive shaft.
And he was running a Bluetooth drive shaft.
Exactly, for about 3 months, and then the clutch checked out of the window.
So we decided, bring everybody up to date, Scott. You can't just jump into the.
You're right. So the same time we did the clutch bearing, I decided to reinstall the front drive shaft because, again, I thought I'm going to put the transfer case drop back on and smooth things out. Now, this to give you an idea, folks, when we talk about things that work for us as well as what didn't, you all probably remember the really nice metal cloak lift sitting inside of my garage for 2 years. Okay, now let me ask you this question. Now, Kevin's laughing and everyone's laughing, and I can hear some listeners right now going, "You idiot." So while, yes, we did put all the lift components on, I bought the transfer case drop
After
I installed the lift. After the custom drive shaft was built by Gulf Coast Drive Shaft for the correct length that wasn't designed for a transfer case drive. You see where I'm going with this, folks?
Yeah. And the thing is, when we dropped the transfer case, it did make the front driveline angle better, much better. But it also gave us a completely, he sent me the picture, I mean, completely incorrect rear angle, where the rear was pointing up at something like 5 degrees and the front one was actually pointing down 3 degrees.
It was just what?
And I think that would shake, buzz, and growl. So to that end, Scott, you handled this one on your own. Tell them what you did.
So here's what I did. Like any good red-blooded American, I decided to drive home the 100 miles at 55 miles an hour on I-4. So if you traveled on I-4 that weekend and saw an LJ on the right-hand lane doing 55 miles an hour, because that's where it wouldn't shake apart, I was that guy.
Yeah.
That was a 3-hour drive home. When I got home, I was not a happy camper. I was pretty grumpy.
Yeah. But you figured out what to do.
Yes. So the next morning I went ahead and I removed the transfer case drop, took it out for a spin, and a lot of the growling went away. A lot of the issues that I had disappeared. Yep. So it's back to how it was before, right after we installed the lift.
Right. So do you still have a little bit of front vibration?
I still have a little bit of front vibration. That's when Kevin came up with the great idea that I could do something to help my front pinion angle. You said, I have those fancy control arms that I could adjust. So here's the problem, folks. When Kevin and I talk about, again, previous statement, I skipped the obvious and spent $40 on a transfer case when I could have just adjusted the stupid arms.
Yeah. And that's when you just start doing minor tweaks and then test. Vibration less? Oh, yeah. Squirminess still not so bad that it's unacceptable? Well, yeah. And, you tweak until you're comfortable. The point is, as we've talked about in several other shows with suspensions, caster and pinion angle unfortunately are welded together in one relationship. And if you make one better, you make the other worse. And you can't really do anything but find the happy medium. And there's lots of experts out there that will tell you, oh, you can get away with 5. Oh, you can get away with 4 degrees. You can get away with this. You can get away. No, when they say get away with, that means somebody's done it and it's worked for them. It might not work for you.
Yeah, because what's the condition of the rest of your driveline components? Right. I mean, are they worn? As Kevin explained to me, it's like, look, we rebuilt that front drive shaft. It's set for 5 months. Yeah, longer than that, actually, more like 7 months. Yeah, did everything need to be moved and greased again? Whatnot. So again, these are things that when Kevin, sometimes you can overthink a problem. You can overthink your problem into buying a $40 transfer case drop. Yeah, or you could have readjusted the rear. Yeah. Okay, and fortunately, he's got the fancy aluminum double acting
arms on the metal cloak versus my Gen 1 single acting arms, which I jokingly say that means you can adjust yours anytime and you have to make sure it doesn't adjust anytime when you don't want it.
Yeah.
Whereas mine, it can come loose and the nuts can roll around and it ain't going anywhere other than about a half a turn before it jams.
Yeah.
Because the ends have to be free for it to adjust. But regardless, you do have to play with it. I mean, honestly, can you fix the pinion angle issue? Yeah. Go back a couple of years in the shows and find out that somebody spent $5,000 on a front axle assembly and had it fabricated with a custom included angle. And what is that? Included angle is simply the center line of your pinion angle on your front axle housing to the center line of your ball joints. And the factory Jeeps are 6 degrees. Some Cherokees had 10, which, if I can get one of those and move all my crap into that one, I can have a better, relationship. Mm-hmm. Or in my case, some of us just went out and Pro Rock fabbed me one with what I wanted, which was 16 degrees, which means that I have 8 degrees positive caster along with a happy pinion angle. And you've been in slightly altered at 70 plus unmentionable velocities, and it handles just fine.
Well, that's interesting because, again, the Pro Rack axle, not in my budget. Mm-hmm. I have to adjust the control arms, which brings me to an interesting question, Mr. Kevin.
What at?
Only because I haven't done it yet, so I got to wait 5 months before I do it. Standard operating procedure. Do you adjust control arms on the ground, or do you raise the Jeep up to get it off to take the weight off the control arms so nothing gets into a bind?
That is a very good question.
Because when you raise the axle up, aren't you going to throw your pinion angle guide thingy down too?
So,
dial gauge. Was it dial gauge?
Well, no, it's I used a magnetic level. You can use your phone for that as well,
Gotcha.
This is always a tough one. You can do them on the ground. However, ... If you do it on the ground, you are putting pressure on the threads, probably more, and you're not your suspension is not in its relaxed normal position then. As soon as you turn that to, let's say you want more, let's say less caster. So you either pull in the bottoms or push out the top, or best do a combination of both so that you don't move your axle center line.
Right.
You've now compressed the upper bushings on a push and stretched the bottom bushings. And not until you drive it are you going to come back and be able to actually have it relaxed again into a static position.
Okay.
So a lot of people would say, oh, no, just better go ahead and lift it up because then you won't be putting load on the system. And as soon as I let it back down, I can bounce it and it'll be relaxed again. And there's some truth to that. But the truth is, in both cases, you kind of have to make an adjustment and test. I tell folks that think about it, when you have a front alignment, they do it with load on the suspension. And there's a lot to be said for load on the suspension in our cases.
Well, but sometimes when they're on the alignment racks, they have bearing plates that the tires are on that can move and adjust.
So you're not. You just jumped me.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. But that's the point. They have on alignment plates. They have slip plates underneath the front wheels.
Thank you.
And the slip plates allow the bushings to at least relax the major pressure and push side to side. The other thing is most front end racks aren't fighting. They're adjusting, okay, we got a degree off here, a quarter degree off there. In Jeep World, we're doing 3-4 degrees at a time, and that's a lot. Also, if you don't have locking hubs, you've got all that driveline load because you're technically rolling the wheels a little bit as you let the load move. So that's why you really... I'm going to tell you it's not crucial either way. It's easier on the arms if you unload the suspension because you're not putting as much, you're still putting some pressure, but you're not putting as much pressure on the threads as you adjust the turnbuckle, the center aluminum section. And that's a concern because aluminum does gall under pressure. If you tighten a bolt too tight on aluminum, the steel bolt and the aluminum become one. Never to part again in one piece. Or two. So I would say I would measure what I need. Use your iPhone on an inclinometer so that if I lift it, know exactly how you lifted it. All right. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
So all right, sitting on the ground, it was this inclination. I have this on the pinion, this on the drive shaft, this on the output from the transfer case. And I wouldn't worry about the actual values. I'd worry about the differential.
Okay. That makes sense.
I've got 3 degrees here and I got 6 degrees here. Because when you lift up the front end, you're not going to read the same angle.
Right.
But your differential is going to change somewhat. But I need to move the pinion down 2 degrees. So then you lift the load off. All right.
Okay.
And then go ahead and loosen your jam nuts and move the lower and the upper arms equally. Because as I recall, and correct me, you guys at Metal Cloak, let me know if I'm wrong, but I think they're all 16 threads per inch, upper and lower arms, different sizes and nuts, but the actual TPI is the same.
Right.
Which means to keep your your front axle where it was, if I push the bottom out 1 turn, that's a 16th inch, I need to pull the top back a 16th of an inch. And that keeps the center point where the wheel spins in the same spot. Otherwise, I've got a line and the bottom kicks out and it kind of swings forward a little bit. But if I push the top up, it brings it back in line.
Right.
It's still pushing, but I'm doing the opposite. And so pushing the bottom out might be a 1/2 degree and pulling the top is another 1/2 degree. It slowly works it down. But get yourself close. Get yourself about your 2 degrees if that's what you need to do for that included between pinion and that. Snug it. Set it down and bounce it, check. It's not going to be a perfect check, but am I close to 2 degrees?
Right.
Good. I am. Tighten it all up, take it for a drive. Come back, park it, start over. Don't use your old measurements anymore because you just went out and drove the thing and you pulled it back and you didn't pull it in the exact same spot, I guarantee you.
Right.
And go measure your 2 again. Okay, well, I thought I had 2 degrees, but look at this. After I bounce it in here, only 1 degree. 1 degree. Okay, repeat. This is where people fall short is they go right to the end and they think they've done it all and they haven't. Okay. You don't have a front end alignment rack in your garage unless you one of them lucky people who afforded all that fancy stuff.
Yeah.
And even then on an alignment rack, when you're adjusting your arms, you're moving a lot of stuff around. Yeah. And again, I see a lot of guys moving just the lowers or just the uppers, and that's not a good idea either. If you follow any kit manufacturer, not just Metal Cloak like Scott has, but anybody's, they give you initial starting points. And if you only push the tops forward, you're stretching your wheelbase. If you only pull the tops in, you're shortening your wheelbase because you have an invisible line between the upper and lower ball joint where the upper and lower suspension mounts. So as you tilt the top, let's say pull the top in, you're rocking a line in. And the middle of that line is essentially the center line of your wheel, which is what we're trying to work with. And it's moving backwards
right.
as you change the angle. So if you need to move half of it in on the top and push half on the bottom, you'll push the wheel very similar back. It's not going to be perfect because it's not a 1-to-1 exact, but it's 0.9 or 0.8. It's so close that you're within factory tolerances. And you can kind of work that. Of course, there are limits to how much thread you've got to keep, a minimum. Each manufacturer gives a different, but as a rule of thumb, if it's a 1-inch threaded rod, you want to keep at least 1 inch in the sleeve for strength, and maybe 1.5 would be better.
Right.
But yeah, that's kind of one of those. I generally, you have to do it, drive it, do it, drive it. And even if you take it to a shop, don't be surprised if you're starting out from just having a suspension lift and you take it to a shop for an alignment and they do it all because they're going to do it in one shot on the lift, on the slip plates, and send you home and you have a problem. And you go and measure it at home with a inclinometer, or better known as a level gauge or a laser a level, or any one of those things where you can read the pitch. And remember that If you have a 5-degree deflection at one end of the drive shaft, you should have a 5-degree deflection at the other end. In the other way is best, but it does work if they're both deflected the same way, like in a U shape, but as long as they're matching. And you shouldn't have a deflection really over 3 degrees if you can help it. Everything you go past 3 degrees shortens the life of the U joints. Spicer, all of them make a chart that says, okay, they're not selling it won't run.
Yeah.
But that life expectancy drops rapidly the greater you go past 3 degrees of deflection. And also your vibration from the ellipse traveled by the actual U joint when it's bent gets great enough to start to feel. And the greater you go past 3 degrees, you move from imperceptible to perceptible.
Yeah.
And how much can you tolerate?
Well, and that's one of the things we talked about when I told you about how I limped the Jeep home.
Yep.
And did what I could because, again, fresh off rescue with another friend of yours, I didn't want to be that guy on I-4 saying, hey, can you come get me 75 miles away from home and then drive home?
Yeah.
No, I didn't want to do this, so I babied it.
Yep.
And I've seen a lot of people out there with, U-joint failures, and yoke failures.
Yep.
I was doing 70 on the interstate. I'm like, why? I could feel the vibration. I knew to back off. I slowed down to where the vibration was just barely perceptible.
Right.
And at that point, I know, okay, I'm not pushing it anymore. Yeah,
and the vibration comes from the fact, folks, and Google it if you want, but when you angularly deflect a U-joint, the rotation of the ends of the U-joint are not circular. And I know it messes with your head going, what? But wait. But no, they're not. In relationship to each other, they form 2 ellipses.
Yeah.
Ovals in better terms, but they're actually ellipses, which is a little different. And because of that, there is an inherent out of balance during that rotation where the drive shaft itself, it's not out of balance, is not the right word, a cyclic acceleration, deceleration, acceleration, deceleration. It goes through those 4 steps in each revolution. And normally when you have a matching offset at the other end, it has the reverse acceleration, deceleration, so the shaft out of the engine and the shaft into the pinion are spinning perfectly matched, smooth, no acceleration, deceleration. They're canceled. The one that induces it is canceled by the other one at the other end. It's when you have 2 different angles, it can't happen that way.
Yeah.
And Scott definitely had 2 different angles on his, and
you're jackhammering them apart.
And you basically are. You're sending those vibration forces up and down the drive shaft. And I'm not going to tell you it's going to kill the pinion end or it's going to kill the transfer case end first. It depends on which is the weaker unit. And depending on which manufacturer, what yoke you've got, what U-joint brand you have, how well you greased it the last time, did you dunk it in water, you name it, the weak one will go. And because it is a harmonic vibration, it's the difference between you shaking something very gently and then vibrating it like a jackhammer.
I remember the old timey videos. I know we've shared a couple of them on the Facebook page where the one showed, here's how a differential works.
Yep.
There's another one that showed I think it was by Spicer, and it had like the 2 angles, and you got to see that the U joints go from a smooth round motion to a jerk, 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 jerk as the angular of the drive shaft, and so you're literally, as we say, jackhammering it apart.
Yeah, and the other thing there, just as a corollary, not necessarily Scott's problem, but that's why phasing a drive shaft is so critical, is that you need the 2 angles to be complementary. And complementary doesn't mean in opposite directions. It's just the same angle to each other. You can complement in and complement out because they use that in certain other drive shaft situations. But for us, it's always equal and opposite. And the closer you get to equal and opposite, the more balanced the running will feel, even though the drive shaft itself is seeing multiple pulses. And those pulses, like I said, there's 2 in and 2 out, so to speak, in each revolution. And drive shafts are designed to take that, okay? And that's why as you get longer and longer, you have critical speeds where the drive shaft has to be bigger and the walls have to be thicker, not just for the speed. Everybody's, that's so they don't fly apart from centripetal force as it spins. Well, there's truth to that, but it's also for the pulses. The more deflection, you're hammering on it as it's spinning, giving it all the more reason to pull apart, So, yeah, drive shaft angles are kind of funky. And the way we lift kits sometimes makes it tough.
Yeah.
And as if we haven't confused and smoked the whole thing up, we throw double cardan joints into the equation.
Mm-hmm.
And even when we didn't have them, although Scott's did have one factory on the rear end, mine didn't, but I added one. I did a slip yoke limiter. A double cardan is that weird little U-joint assembly at the end of a drive shaft, usually at the upper end, not always, but usually, that has two U-joints in this iron hub, kind of an assembly. And the truth is that's a really short drive shaft.
Very short.
But it is a drive shaft. All of that angularity and velocity swap happens in that nodular iron housing that holds the two U-joints. So what's that mean? It means the drive shaft itself coming off a double cardan is running smooth. The harmonics have been canceled within the double cardan. Well, what's that mean for the single drive shaft down at your pinion angle? It must be under 3. It should be about 1. Ideally, mechanically, it should be 0. It should be in dead straight line with the drive shaft. But every drive shaft manufacturer just had a heart attack right now. Every U-joint guy just screaming no. Okay. And the problem with that is then the bearings inside the U-joint will not rotate at all, and grease will not be spread around evenly.
See, mummy dust.
And it will turn to mummy dust. It'll freeze up on you. So they tell you that the minimum angle is around 1 degree. The maximum for full life is 3 degrees. Now, it can run up quite a bit higher than that. They don't guarantee it for the maximum life.
Anything can run for a little bit.
Yeah. So what you've got is you will see a lot of lifted Jeeps if they're set up correctly. And that's the big proviso, if they are set up correctly. The pinion on the front and the rear will be pointing almost dead straight up the shaft. And if you use an angle finder gauge on it, or an inclinometer, which is the correct thing for the slope, the two should be, if it's 6 degrees here, it should be 5 or 7, but not 6.
Okay.
Same thing on the front can be the same thing, unless your front is a single cardan to a single cardan, not a double cardan to a single. Because, again, a double cardan has already removed the harmonics.
How do you grease that ball in the center, or can you?
There are, just like there are different U-joints, but yes, there are greasable versions, and on the side of that cast iron housing that they sit into is a needle port, the little screw-in thing with a ball in the tip of it, and you use the little, not the regular Zerk fitting, but the needle that goes in, pushes the ball in, and you can pump it, and it has a little passageway that goes down to the ball. And I probably think the first time it probably worked. Afterwards, I'm not sure if it still works.
Because I didn't see one of those, and I see the shiny little ball in there, and I'm kind of thinking to myself, can I just squirt some grease on it?
No, not really. It's if it's a sealed for life, and it goes until you start to hear the angry sparrows.
Yeah, which I have experienced, and that was not fun.
I have too.
I remember you I was on the way to the RV show, and I heard the angry sparrows, and we left there and came to your house to hang out for a little bit, and it was kind of like, yeah, we're going to take care of that real quickly, so it didn't go bang on the way home.
Yeah. And for those that are
younger in the tool,
younger in the Jeep community from the TJ days, front drive shafts were often on the TJs. The double cardan from the factory was a sealed unit, and they were actually very good. And most people forgot about them. And somewhere around I'm going to say 80 thou, 100,000, 120 thou. You started to hear what sounded like a bunch of sparrows under your front of your Jeep having a fight.
Yeah. Hopefully the laughing monkeys under the hood didn't start laughing at the sparrows having a fight.
Yeah, TJers did become very creative with describing the noises.
Yeah, I know. It's almost as bad as the farting rhinoceros on the gladiators. I'm kidding. I made that up, folks.
But what
My
that
metal band name
is in a double cardan between the U joints and it's part of one of the U joint mount assemblies is a centering pin and a ball that goes kind of over that pin and in a socket that creates the necessary alignment and keeps the alignment between the two U joints to being always half and half of what the total angle is. So if your drive shaft's tipped down 10 degrees, you're going to have 5 and 5. And it doesn't rotate as you think because it's a ball. Oh, it's got to rotate. No, it just swivels. Okay. As the how do I describe this? If you had a joystick,
so far you're doing really good.
If you had a joystick, okay. You know, the handle doesn't actually rotate, but you can push it to the right and then do big circular sweeps. The handle itself isn't spinning, it's just orbiting.
Yeah.
That's what the ball does in the middle.
Okay.
It orbits such a way that the locations of the ball is directly on the center between the two U joints, and it holds the two frames so that because it's spinning, it has to be half. So it makes a perfectly balanced assembly in terms of the forces. And when that ball dries out or the pin dries out, it gets really loud.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I took mine apart, I admit I ended up having to utilize the gas axe to remove the ball joint assemblies.
Now, for the kids at home that don't understand what a gas axe is.
Oxyacetylene cutting head.
Yeah.
Put the dark goggles on and start spraying little globules of molten metal all over your garage to slip on and get stuck in your shoes. And
can't hold if it's liquid.
Yeah. Before plasma cutters, folks, we burnt acetylene or propane and oxygen in a controlled yet devastatingly beautiful fashion.
Devastatingly beautiful fashion.
Well, the metal thought it was devastating, but everybody else thought, oh, that's cool.
It's kind of like a bunch of idiots watching a transformer explode, and, they're staring at arc welding going on. I'm like, guys, don't stare at that. It's pretty. Don't. You're staring at a welder. No, I'm not. I'm staring at a transformer explode. Okay, goodbye. Have fun.
Yep. Say goodbye to your vision.
I can't see. I wonder why.
Yeah, well. But, drive shafts are just one of those neat little things.
They're good till they're not, which is one of the things I thought of. And I kind of realized as we're talking about this, because, the LJ sat for 5 months.
Yeah.
It's like I never, as the kids would say, winterized my Jeep. It wasn't until I saw the squirrel go under my Jeep. I'm like, oh, heck no. And I'm out there with the garden hose going, no, not a week before I fix this thing. Get out. I'm popping the hood, found the mud dauber's nest, and you know how I am about wasps.
Yes.
Freaking out, running around in the yard, swatting at my head. And then the dashboard cracks, and I'm like, man, this thing's rotting away. No.
Yeah, you got that new Gladiator smell still going on there.
No, but I love the Gladiator, but 80,000 miles on it, it's 2020. I got 80,000 miles. 50 of these miles were put from starting to August 31st, 2021.
Yeah.
So from that to now is 50,000 miles.
Yeah.
But no, I miss driving the LJ, man. I really did. And it's one of those things like, Kevin and I, since we started doing this show, I had the YJ, and that was bare bones. That was no air conditioning, 4-cylinder.
Leaf springs.
Without a leaf. So
if it was hard before, it's now like driving granite suspension.
That really turned your teeth to balsa wood. But, rhino line floor, no carpet, no air conditioning, hard feet boiling. And then we went to the JK, which is like rolling living room.
Yep.
And then we got the LJ, now the Gladiator, and you see all the iterations.
Creature comforts.
Thank you, but again, I love the Gladiator, and it holds its well. It has its place and its purpose. And one of the guys at work said, man, Jeep's ride so rough. Like, what's the last one you drove? Well, I have a friend of mine had like an '84. I'm like, well, that's the problem. That's the last Jeep you've been in. Now, I'm not going to tell you the Gladiator's going to ride like a Lincoln or a Cadillac. But man, it does ride nice. But at the same time, I miss shifting the gears. I miss holding on for dear life in the wind. I miss no place to put my coffee. I don't drink coffee. You guys know that. But the point is that it's that sweet spot, man. You know, and I'm looking at all the sales numbers about how, you know, TJs are just holding the value, especially.
Well,
LJs.
they are the last of the mid-bodied Jeeps. Okay, and they are the crossover.
Yeah.
Between tech and no tech.
Yeah.
And so you kind of flavor both worlds, and the neat thing I like about a TJ is you can strip it down and it'll still run. You know, yes, it's got a computer, but that's the only thing it has to have. Yeah. And it sits up, you know, folks, I'll be honest. And Scott and I have done this to my Jeep. You can actually pull the computer and the entire wiring harness, and it all comes out with the engine.
Yeah.
As far as that goes. And the body harness, they only interact at one connector.
Mm-hmm.
One connector. And you could argue that the gas tank won, but the gas tank's part of the engine in my book. So as long as the computer's there, that engine will run. If you pull the engine out, you have one connector that you can look at and go, oh, okay. Do I need that? That's reporting to the gauge. That's reporting to gauge. That's reporting, which, by the way, don't work without the computer. But everything else will work. Lights and turn signals and that kind of stuff. It's not, in my book, heavily over-integrated, but it's not YJ where, okay, give me a paper clip, two twist ties, and a 9-volt battery, and I can make it run.
I liken it to this.
Yeah.
And this just happened. Okay.
An epiphany just appeared above his head. The purple flying unicorn is rearing.
Exactly. When you had the CJs and MBs, it was likened to parenthood. You know, as you're driving it, that's my boy. Don't hurt yourself. Mm-hmm. You know, in the 80s, we had, you know, the YJs, which, you know, again, a little more, not much creature comforts, but it looked nice. So it was, what kid? I mean, come on. You know, my generation, the TV had, you know, it's 10 o'clock, you know, your kids are, you know, okay. And then in the 90s, you got a little bit of safety, don't do that. That's going to hurt you. And then now towards the JKs and JLs, we got the helicopter parenting and everything else and the side airbags and the ABS. So it's kind of interesting how the vehicles have kind of progressed along with the parenting styles. I know it's a little, I'm just laughing at the whole thing, like the whole what kids, because, you know.
Well, it's just it's a mirror of society.
Okay,
no, I'm going to say that
better.
because, no, but in truth, the current Jeeps are there to keep you safe because you're not responsible for your actions. You take a CJ, you flip it, you die. Don't flip it. Do I need to make myself clear? You know.
Thank you, Ralph Nader.
Well, it's just, and now you've got every nanny on board. Although even the Jeep's not quite as bad as my Ford truck.
Oh man, your Ford truck's like a klaxon going off.
It does. Your window's down. Your seatbelt is slightly askew on your shoulder. Yeah.
Scott's in the back seats chewing gum again.
It's just like, I mean, it's a great truck, but boy, it sure does like to talk to you. Ding, 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 dong, 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 beep, 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 beep.
It's so funny because we took a picture today because we, as you all know, we record these shows sometimes in bulk. But it's funny, I finally woke up and I can speak now.
Yeah, you can.
It's only been doing, 4 hours? But the point is that we took a picture of Kevin's truck next to the GPW.
Let's back up. Scott decided he wanted a picture of his corral. So he's got the 80 years. Yeah, 80 years of Jeeps that live in his garage, domicile, driveway, wherever he chooses, under his tree. I don't care. So you've got the GPW in the middle, like Granddaddy.
Yeah.
You know, and he's got the LJ on one side and the Gladiator on the other side, you know. So there's 80 years of Jeep. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, before you move, let me move the Ford over there. And he goes, okay, why? I says, because they're related. So here's a Ford F-250 diesel hauler parked next to, and he went to take a picture from the front, which was fine. And he was going to get one from the right and one from the left. I think I said this in the last show, is the from the Jeep side's fine. You don't see anything but Jeep in front of a monster with the backdrop of a Ford. And by the way, this is a 2-wheel drive diesel tow Jeep, Ford pickup, so it's lowered and it still stands higher than the
Jeep is almost the size of the cab.
And if you turned around and you go back over to the Ford side to take a Ford side view, you can't even see the Jeep.
It disappears. No, but it was kind of, it's just kind of funny because, like, again, back in those days, you died like men.
Yeah. Well, and is that wrong? No, this is just the way the world turns. I'm not trying to be politically,
whatever,
a soothsayer or anything like that. It's just vehicles, match the society in which they were designed. And I think that's one of the reasons there's so much nostalgia for the older ways. It was older. It was simpler. We remember that part. We forget that before you had the, what they call it, the family cage on the later YJs and TJs, you had sport bars.
It just covered their upper or lower half.
Yeah, well, the kids were exposed, and the roll bar was kind of behind the parent's head. And, if you rolled nose forward, the parents got it. If you rolled...
Oh, my God. Well, I wasn't wrong because that didn't change till 91 because 91, I had the sport bars. So I'm no joking. In the 80s, it was what kids?
Yeah. So, and you forget all of the implications. And so the improvements aren't bad.
No.
Okay. But they do change the flavor because, unfortunately, as human beings, there's a group of us, call it a subgroup if you want, that kind of like the thrill and the risk.
Yeah.
I mean, we know at least 2 different groups of people that enjoy flopping their Jeeps on the side despite the damage.
This Windrock trip would probably be fun to watch. I'd love to be a fly on the wall with that one.
Well, you forget that Bonnie and Kenny...
That's how they met.
That's how they met, was they went out on a date to see if they could lay the Jeep over on the side. And they're married and happily from it. There are some changes, okay? And I still think there's a core to that risk that some subspecies of human, unfortunately I'm in that subspecies, what do? We take off a lot of safety equipment. It was there for a purpose.
Dude, BMX, the first thing we did was take off the brakes. And there was a free wheel hub, man, because it was cool. Again, see the previous statement, we died like men. Went through tennis shoes real quickly, too.
But
I always tell the one kid who kept putting his right foot into the front
however,
forks.
You're not a parent. You're a puppy parent, but you're not a parent.
Yeah.
Would I want my daughter to do that? No. It's a double-edged sword on those kinds of things. You really appreciate, particularly that first drive she had home from the delivery. She's in the back of the Grand Cherokee in the baby car seat, facing backwards in the middle, zip down, with your knee weights holding, everything's checked right, and blankets padded. I'm surprised I didn't put balloons on either side, Meanwhile, I'm running around with my Toyota lifted. We're weird people.
Drinking your Mountain Dew, eating your chicken nuggies while driving a stick shift. I know.
Yeah, well, I'm the guy that busted his hand, my right hand, and drove to the hospital shifting and steering with my left to the emergency room. I don't need no ambulance.
Meanwhile, behind the wheel of his Toyota, our intrepid hero drives himself to the emergency room to have his brain sewed back in.
Yeah, the worst part was I went to the wrong hospital that we didn't cover. And they said, well, we can do you, but you'll have to pay for it. Otherwise, you got to go over there. So I got back in and drove to the other one. Yeah.
I'm not spending a dime.
There's a whole story
Meanwhile,
there. I won't even go there.
Later, but
anyhow, yeehaw.
Exactly. Well,
So the long and short of it,
yes,
since we've wandered way off,
but not really,
is Scott did manage to bring the LJ back into drivable. In fact, had been running the snot out of it. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing what a bad vibration will make you think when you have a minor vibration. That the minor vibration just really isn't that bad, is it?
No, not at all. I can still do 70 now.
Yeah, you can. But
75 gets a little sketchy. But again, I don't want to have broken bits in a bag.
A lifted Jeep Here it's 75 with air under the belly.
Slightly altered. And the Gladiator.
Yeah, you got a little ways to go to catch up to slightly altered.
And the Gladiator, I'm in there.
Yeah, but that's not even in the same class.
I'm drinking tea and cup the saucer. Meanwhile, in the LJ, I'm holding on for dear life with a 3-point contact.
Do you know what an Angelina is? Little British car from the 60s? Mm-hmm. Okay, take Don Garlitz and his stretched rail down the drag strip next to the little Angelina. And tell me which one's more stable.
Angelina.
No.
Really?
Squirrely is short wheelbase. And you're in that squirrely short wheelbase versus your Gladiator, which is kind of like the luxury yacht.
The sad thing is the LJ is no slouch. It's 15 inches longer than a regular TJ. It's still squirrely compared to the Gladiator.
Yeah, well, we'll get there one of these days.
The Gladiator. The winch is 2 minutes early and the tailgate's 2 minutes late.
Well, yeah, that was like my F-350.
Yeah.
You remember that one?
The Queen Mary.
The Queen Mary. Four-door crew cab, 8-foot bed, tow rig with hips. And you could hit a speed bump in one county and then drive for 15 minutes before the rears caught up.
It's funny. We talk about how the GPW would fit in the back of your truck now.
Oh, can you imagine what that would have been like with the 350?
Glove box of the other one. The center console. What the heck's in here?
I almost want to put that on the tow bar behind the RV.
What?
The GPW. I wouldn't even feel it back there.
It's like a Lincoln towing a roller skate.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Lincoln towing a roller skate.
I think we're going to have to get that cable replaced.
Yeah, we're going to have to get that cable replaced eventually.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of cable replaced, with any luck, on the end of this show, we will be tagging an interview. Hopefully.
Oh, okay. You're coming in here, yeah. Otherwise, you'll be clipping this off.
And if I didn't clip this off, you'll know the interview is coming up here in a moment, folks.
Yeah. No, we've got a couple of vendors, as we've talked about. Scott has finished. Has it been 2 oil changes now?
One oil change.
One oil change so far
Baxter.
on the Baxter filter, and so far that first oil change was pretty easy, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. And what air compressor did you use? Your little shop one?
Big one.
Okay, so you used the big one. Mm-hmm. For those that don't remember, go back about 5 shows to our talk about the Baxter Performance filter replacement assembly. Not even really. I wouldn't even call it a replacement because it goes in place of the cap and the filter element, but it maintains the body, and it swaps it from a cartridge to a spin-on. Mm-hmm. But it also has a check valve that holds oil in reserve so that when you start a 3.6, it's not oil starved till the pump brings oil up, which is purported, I've got to put it that way, purported to be the cause of a lot of the cam and lifter wear in the 3.6s that have been so predominant. Especially when you add on the thin oils that they're now specifying as far as the grade.
Yeah, I just started putting 2050 in it.
And
I'm joking, folks.
No, he's using the 90 weight super lube,
No
molasses.
I'm not ashamed to admit it. I did do a one oil change to 5W20.
Yeah. Which is the same engine that used to say 5W20, but the economics of the thinner oils do help it when it's running, when the oil pump is circulating. It's better lubricity, but it doesn't. The thin oils don't quite have the cling, as they call it.
They don't have as much
viscosity and body.
The PSI film
pressure.
I think that's what it's called.
Yeah. But, you're hopefully they slid in here and we get to talk to them because you wanted to give some reports back to them, get the feedback. It's a lot of fun, folks, when we have manufacturers that engage us. We've got another round of stuff pending from one of the electronics side elements coming
Operation Skunk Works.
Yeah, some Skunk Works stuff.
I said scump.
Yeah, I was trying to gloss over it, and you just had to go off. Anyhow.
Now I'm trying to think of a code way to say his name. Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. We will find out soon enough, and we enjoy it, folks. Understand that most of these are provided to us at no cost if they provide it, and they understand that we're going to give an honest reading. So as we start getting a few more of these, it's kind of fun to see where they're going with. This latest one is We've worked with this organization before, but they're pushing some new envelopes, and they want us to do some beta testing. So there's a teaser for you.
Yeah.
And so we will let you know as soon as the little boxes show up for us to do. And they're asking both of us to kind of test their stuff out. And we said, well, I don't know what he said, but I said, yeah, ship it. I'll try and break it.
Something very similar.
So,
hey, that's in stereo.
yeah.
Well, hey, folks, this might be an abbreviated show, but we got to get Kevin back so we can have dinner with
We're recording
Susan.
over here in Deltona again.
Yes.
And
He's got to drive near Mouse World.
well, I'm going around it. I'm trying a new route this trip, and so far it's been good. And I can look from the north and see Orlando.
Okay.
But rather than I've gone where I went through the middle of it, bad. I can go south of it. Used to be good, but right now it's all torn up and under reconstruction, and it's just about as bad because where it dumps you out, you're in the middle of the nightmare, right underneath a set of very large ears.
Oh, hey, now you owe me money.
That's the power system. Only you're the one using the the voice.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
But they've connected some parts of another toll road. It is a toll road, but what did I say it was?
429?
429 that runs on the north side. A little further, it comes up through Apopka and some of the other places in Florida with weird little names. And while it has some construction also, because part of it is really, honestly, through North Orlando suburbs.
Yeah.
It rolled really well this morning coming over here, and I want to see because it connects back up to Die 4 further to the west.
Yeah.
Quite several miles further than where 417, the south toll road, comes back, and definitely better than coming down through the insane asylum known as I-4 through Orlando.
From exit 68 through 51 is a nightmare.
Yeah, it's a lot of twisty, turny roads there. Mm-hmm. When it was originally built, I'm not faulting Orlando. Orlando grew up around the highway, and they tried to fit more and more and more, and they had nowhere to go but up. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of elevated roadways and twists and dives under and crossovers, and that in itself was well done. Yeah. The crazy drivers, though, who you can't see them coming because they're coming on a connecting road that's running underneath you that's going to swing around to your left and then suddenly shoot up and merge into you. And all of a sudden, here you come with your little Nissan, whatever.
It's funny you say Nissan.
Well, I just picked a brand.
Proportionally. Sorry if you own a Nissan, folks, but on I-4, majority of the crazy drivers are Nissan drivers.
In Scott's opinion. But
you might want to Google that.
Hey, I've seen my fair share of Jeeps trying to do the same thing. I'm going, dude, this is not a rock climb.
I don't care.
Anyhow.
There goes those listeners. Whoops.
Oh, no, I can't. Anybody that's listening from Orlando has been in the middle of that and could say you're painting it too light.
From exit 114 to the exit 61, it's Mad Max Beyond the Thunderdome. It's fine.
Yeah, I do like this. And I'm looking around there and it says speed limit 60. And I'm looking over here going, okay, I'm doing, let's just say above that. And I'm going, wait a minute. Somehow did I get back onto Daytona's racetrack?
Remember, in the far right lane, it's 70 to 80. In the center lane, it's 80 to 90. And the left lane is illegal.
Yeah, I've been on the Autobahn in Germany and had less concern.
Because they did inspections.
Yeah, well, this is true. Florida, we have... everybody says, I'm going to get a Florida car. They don't rust. I said, you better look close because these crazy people go down there and play near the salt water.
I wish I was joking. We had a guest come in one time and the tires were completely bald. Steel belt showing almost.
Yep.
No, I don't need tires. Just do my oil change. And this was in July, folks, which is the middle of the rainy season.
Yeah. Eeks.
Yeah.
So
I trust an F1 car before I trust that car.
All right, folks.
Welcome to TireCast with your hosts, Kevin and Scott.
Well, no, we just live in one of the more interesting parts of this state where
Oh, come on. Florida's a freak show state. Just say it. We're always in the news. If it's not an alligator eating somebody, it's something else going on.
well,
here.
yeah, you see the alligator climbing up somebody's sliding glass doors.
Yeah.
And, how many
What's
in the
he
political world, Florida. Whoops. And this wire is not going to hang around.
Yeah, I was
after
going to
this
say
show.
that this thing's checking out the chat. The wire's telling us, okay, guys, you're enough with your Jeep Chat show.
And, and then, of course, Scott getting woke up last when
Last night with the SpaceX launch, I thought my burrito I had for lunch wanted to check out.
And it's the same place that when I first got here and we were in our new house, I'd come down from Washington, D.C. and collapsing. And at that point, the house was in the country. Not now, it's kind of been grown up around, but we were laying down to go to sleep and all of a sudden you hear ba-boom, not once, but twice, just rattled the windows and the roof. And you're getting up and you're running around going, what in the name of, and, going, okay, where is my arsenal for protection kind of thing? What did somebody do? Have an accident outside? It's a dead end cul-de-sac,
Yeah.
Somebody's trying to break in, blah, blah, blah. No, it's like, what was it? It was a shuttle doing S-curves above Tampa on its approach into the landing strip over here. It's like, at 2 a.m. Yeah, I guess they kind of have to come down when they come down.
Well, you get cheaper parking that way. Yeah.
I built their parking lot. Don't give me that on the landing strip. So, anyhow, yeah, Florida.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful state. It's a wonderful place to visit. But you could just send us your money and skip it, Nah, I wouldn't do that to you. It is a lot of fun. There's a lot of history here. And you know what? There's a lot of cool Jeepers here.
Yeah,
It's for a state that has nothing but a sandbox to play in. We got a lot of cool Jeepers here.
that's what we do.
So,
Anywho. And in stereo again. And with that, we'll always remember to take nothing but pictures and wait. It's time to lock the hub, put the Jeep in 4 low, and hit the trail. I knew I was going to mess it up because I got the intro right.
oh, yeah, that's true.
And also remember to take nothing but Peppa Pig, pictures, memories, and your trash when you leave the trail.
Yeah, we want to keep our trails open. We keep getting them to be threatening to close them because people are dumping garbage.
Yeah.
People are starting fires. And worst of all, because we can't share the blame on this one, Jeepers are leaving marked trails.
Yeah.
And if you do that in Florida, we have a very, very fragile ecosystem. And once you go through, they're estimating that one Jeep tearing up one bit of original grounds can take over 100 years to recover. Yeah. So stick to the trails, folks. Please stick to the trails.
We have a couple off-road parks if you want to get crazy.
Yeah. You pay for it, but you can be as nutsy as you want, and they'll even dial 911 if you need it.
Exactly. So with that, you folks have a great one. We'll see you on the next episode of 193.
All right. See you later. Bye.
Bye.
Proceeding has been provided for entertainment only. Proper service and repair procedures are vital to the safe, reliable operation of all motor vehicles, as well as personal safety of those performing those repairs. Standard safety procedures and precaution, including the use of safety goggles and proper tools and equipment, should be followed at all times to eliminate the possibility of personal injury or improper service which could damage the vehicle or compromise its safety.
What he said. Thanks a lot for listening, guys. You guys have a great day.
Bye.
This has been a Bent Axle Media production.